All right, welcome back to another episode of Ask a Clutter Boss, the internet's best, possibly only weekly advice, decluttering advice show. Wait, let me try that again. The internet's best, possibly only weekly decluttering advice show. If you are joining us live, please say hello in the comments. If you have submitted a question, thank you. If you have a question and you have not submitted it, go ahead and pop it into the comments. Also, we can always do an off the cuff answer, which actually most of these are anyway. So happy Tuesday, everyone. I am Jess Marcy. I am your clutter boss for today, answering your questions about all things home organization, decluttering live. Okay, as usual, we have some great questions. But as usual, the questions always tend to follow some similar pattern of topic, which is so interesting to me. Today, we have two topics that are a general theme that came in with the questions that were submitted this week. The first is a topic, and I really hesitate to even use this word, but I'm going to because it specifically was used in both of these questions. The questions are about hoarders. Now, I just want to say I don't agree with using the term hoarder and applying it to somebody who does not have a medical diagnosis. If you have not been diagnosed as a hoarder, it is not okay for us to refer to other people as hoarders. There is no positive connotation to that term. If you think you might be a hoarder, if you classify somebody else as a hoarder, you are perpetuating a label that is really a medical diagnosis and is shrouded in shame and overwhelm and embarrassment. I think there's other terms that we can use that are better, especially again in the absence of a medical diagnosis. A clutterer, I've heard people say I'm a clutterer, a clutterer. I have a lot of clutter. I struggle with letting go. You can describe what's going on without saying hoarder, because again, when we use the term hoarder, we are just, it's a medical diagnosis, period. Okay, I'm just going to put that out there first. So every time I say the word or read it, I really feel like we need to talk about why we're using this term and when it's appropriate and not appropriate to use it. So that is my little caveat about these first two questions. So the two questions that came in about dealing with somebody who has hoarding tendencies, I've been trying to help a hoarder, but it's more work for me. It's more work for just me, and she doesn't trust people coming in to help. What can I do going forward? I'm open to all suggestions. Okay, so once again, if somebody has been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, if somebody has truly been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, it is going to be very difficult. And I am going to make an assumption here. I am assuming that you are helping this person and that your intention is to help them remove stuff from their home. That is typically when people say, I am going to help a hoarder, what they're saying is, I'm going to help remove stuff from the home. If somebody is truly been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, it is very, very unlikely that you are going to be able to help them remove stuff from their home. If you have hoarding disorder, typically you have also been diagnosed with another mental health situation. Perhaps it is OCD. In fact, you used to only be able to get a hoarding diagnosis if you were first diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. That is not the case anymore. Hoarding disorder is its own diagnosis. That being said, usually when somebody has been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, it is a very complex diagnosis, and it is usually a co-diagnosis with something else. So as the average, really well-meaning, good-hearted friend, to have this intention to go in and help somebody who has been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, to help them remove stuff from their house. It's kind of like saying, "I'm going to help, a friend who's been diagnosed with cancer, I'm going to go and treat them," right? It's we are not qualified to help people with hoarding disorder remove items from their homes. That is outside of the scope of what we as friends can do for somebody with that diagnosis. That being said, there is always something that you can do to help a friend. And typically it looks different than what your expectation is, but there's always something that you can do. So if you have a friend that you're trying to help who's a hoarder and they don't trust people coming in to help, what you can do is see if there's another way that you can be a support for this person in their life. Can you be somebody that is a listening ear? Can you be there to hear their story? Can you be present for them? Can you help them with groceries? Can you help them um, maybe with yard work? Can you help this person in some way that is not going into their house and removing stuff? Because for somebody who has hoarding disorder, one reason they're probably not trusting is because people are trying to take away their stuff. And that can be very re-traumatizing. I mean, hoarding disorder typically there's some trauma history usually. So if you're going in and trying to basically remove a security blanket, it can be very re-traumatizing. My little puppy just showed up here. Okay. So how can you help somebody that is not actually taking stuff out of their house? Because if you're not qualified to do that, then and even if you are a medical professional who has studied hoarding disorder, really understands it, um, it's truly difficult to work with somebody who has a diagnosis of hoarding disorder. And a lot of times it's because our expectation is that we can move forward at a certain pace. And from my experience working with a lot of people who have a lot of clutter, the pace is slow, and that is okay. There is a lot of once you remove something, one single thing, there is a lot of emotion that comes with it. There is a lot of kind of follow-up that needs to be done that you as an individual need to do to internally process what is happening. Clutter is never about the stuff, ever. If clutter were about the stuff, we would have no problem decluttering. It's never about the stuff. It is always about the emotions, the finances, the relationships, the story, the history. It is always about something else. So when you're dealing with somebody who has an extreme attachment or collection and you take something away, you have to process all of the other stuff that comes along with it. So the process is a slow moving process. Now, steady action, steady movement is incredible, but it's slow moving. So if you're going in to help somebody who has a tremendous amount of clutter, you may expect that at your pace, letting go of somebody else's stuff, you can move pretty rapidly. But the reality is if you got through one or two or three things in an hour, that might be a very impressive pace for that person. So, all of that being said, the best way that you can help somebody who has hoarding disorder is probably not to go in there and expect that you can remove things from their home. It is probably to go in there and say, "Hey, I see you. I understand that there's a lot more to this picture than meets the eye. I have never walked a mile in your shoes. I want to be here for you as a friend. I recognize that that might mean not helping you with the clutter, but helping you with other things in your life so that if you're ready to tackle the clutter, you have time to do that on your own with your at your own pace." Um, thank you for the comment, Denise. It's really complicated, and unfortunately, so much of what we see on the media and so much of what we see from the professional organizing industry doesn't recognize this at all, or if we talk about like that horrible show Hoarders, the way that they are tackling the clutter, and I understand there's a lot of extenuating circumstances if you're on that show, um, is not how I would recommend doing it because it's re-traumatizing. Okay, so that was a very long answer to this question, but this is a topic that we need to talk about because throwing around this term, as we tend to do, is not helpful to anyone who's really struggling with a lot of clutter. The second question along these lines: how do you deal with a hoarder's clutter that belongs to the man that you live with? Okay. So if your significant, I'm assuming it's a significant other here, um, probably husband. If your husband, so again, so if you're saying a hoarder's clutter, it has this person been diagnosed with hoarding disorder? Because number one, if they have a lot of clutter and you think they are a hoarder, have you gone down that path of getting an actual diagnosis? If not, that's the place to start, is to see if we can get a medical diagnosis and more understanding around what is going on. Again, if somebody has been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, they probably have a co-diagnosis also. And working on that co-diagnosis and with you in a support role can be really powerful. But just tackling somebody else's clutter with the assumption that they're a hoarder but without a medical diagnosis is it's a futile effort, I think. Um, my second question is, so if you're living with, and I guess, oh yeah, it does say that you live with this person. If you're living with somebody who has what we may say hoarding level clutter, like a tremendous amount of clutter, my number one question to you is it safe? Are you in a safe living environment? And I do believe that you can live in a generally safe environment and also have a lot of stuff. However, the more stuff that you have, the more unsafe the environment can become. So if you're in a relationship with somebody and they are a hoarder, they've been diagnosed with hoarding disorder, my question to you is how safe is this environment? Because at the end of the day, you have to prioritize making yourself safe first. That is your number one prerogative is, are you safe? Are you safe in a relationship? Oftentimes we get asked this question and it's about domestic abuse. Most of the time, medical professionals don't think about the safety that comes with stuff. So I want you to think about this in a similar way. Are you safe in your living environment? Period. Whether we're talking about domestic abuse, whether we're talking about living with a tremendous amount of stuff in your house, is it a safe living environment? If it is not a safe living environment, you need to figure out your next step. What is your course of action to keep yourself safe? That is your number one priority. Sometimes removing yourself from the situation and then still being a support to the other person might be the way to go. Um, I'm just going to go over to the comments here right quick. It is wrong to call someone a hoarder. Absolutely, it is name calling. I completely agree with you, Anne. And that is why we always have to start with a medical diagnosis before we move forward. Um, if you are living with somebody who has a lot of clutter, and if this is you, you have a lot of clutter, you've not been medically diagnosed with hoarding disorder, you are, and I think there's a comment here, I look like a hoarder, but I think I'm more of out of control clutter, disorganization, and little motivation. I think that that would describe a lot of the people that we work with in our communities, except that I would say out of control clutter and disorganization. I wouldn't say it's little motivation. I would actually say it's more along the lines of overwhelm. When we are tremendously overwhelmed, our nervous system tends to go into fight or flight or shut down, right? So motivation usually has very little to do with it. There's usually a lot of other important things that are going on that kind of masquerade as little motivation. If you're here, I would bet that you are pretty motivated. You're just not sure exactly how to get out of this nervous system response you have to the overwhelm. And that's what we figure out slowly over time. Um, when we're talking about somebody who is in this category, a lot of clutter, disorganization, feeling very overwhelmed, and you are living with this person or you are this person, I want you to think about what can you let go of easily. I know there's all these methodologies for decluttering that go in a very specific order until you have to start with your clothing or you have to start with your junk drawer or you have to start with who knows what. Um, I believe you need to start with whatever is just easy for you, just easy for you. And set your expectations to be, can I let go of one thing today? Can I let go of one thing today? Can I let go of one thing tomorrow? We tend to have these massive expectations. I'm going to get through my whole entire house in a month. Usually, that is not possible. I will say that even for somebody who doesn't have a lot of clutter, so my house is very lived in, often a mess. There's not a lot of clutter. We live mostly within the storage space that we have, except for maybe my teenage daughter, one of them, which is fine because that's the phase in life that she's in. If I were going to declutter my house in a month, I would still be pretty hard pressed to go through every single space in my home, which is already decluttered, and get through it in a month. Uh, Danny, come here. Sorry, my dog has stitches, which is why he's here, and I'm just trying to make sure he's not picking at them. That's why I'm working from home today to take care of my little puppy. Okay, so I think we need to really manage our expectations about how much we can possibly do in any given time. There's a lot of distractions. We live in the age of distractions, right? So we had the industrial age, we had the whatever. We're in the age of distractions right now. And to turn off all of those distractions and stay very focused on a task that is overwhelming to us to begin with is really hard. Let's just recognize that is incredibly, incredibly difficult to do. So, if you can start moving slowly in the right direction, that is really the key to success ultimately. And remember, it is never just about the stuff. It's always about the emotions, the the other things that have to do with the stuff. If it were just about the stuff, we could toss it out. It would be so simple. It is not. So, if we are tackling a few things every day, we also have to tackle the emotions that come with it or the financial history that comes with it, or which is emotions again, or the story that it represents in our life, or whatever it is connected to. And that takes way longer than just tossing something into the trash. So recognize all of this, move at a pace that is comfortable for you. And if you're working with somebody else who you live with who has a lot of clutter, it's really important to manage your own expectations because our methodology and speed and attachments and everything are not this person's. And so just be cognizant, respectful, and loving as much as possible. I know how hard it is when you're working with somebody else. The other option, again, this is if you're helping somebody else, like if you have a spouse who has a lot of clutter, it's just to remove yourself entirely from the whole situation. Can you bring in an expert to help this person? Are they open to getting help from somebody else? Is there a therapist involved? I mean, usually we need to have a therapist working with us as we go down this path when we have this amount of clutter. Maybe take yourself out of the equation completely. Give your significant other the space that they need to process the stuff and to process the emotions. If you want to be helpful, can you support in a different way? Can you pick up some other things that need doing around the house to give this person more time to work on their clutter? Can you offer to drive things to donation centers, schedule donation pickups? Maybe be available to go for a walk with the other person when they hit a particularly emotional thing. Is there a way that you can be supportive that is not, actually helping with the decluttering. Okay, so that is a very long answer on the topic of hoarding disorder, calling other people hoarders, living with somebody who has hoarding tendencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's be the people in this world who change this game. Let's speak up and say it's not okay to call somebody else a hoarder. It is Hoarding is a complex medical diagnosis. And if somebody has hoarding level clutter, how can I support them in a way that is actually truly supportive and not pushing forth what I think the right thing to do is? And recognize how difficult that is to be the person in that role also. Okay. The next few questions are about kitchen storage. So, what is the best way to store items that are too tall for your kitchen cabinets? I do not have an existing pantry. I usually keep these items to the right side of my stove for quick usage. I really don't want to decant liquids. Okay, I don't want you to decant liquids either. I actually think decanting is mostly a waste of time. So, controversial professional organizer opinion here. Decanting stuff is a total waste of time. This is why, because sometimes, well, first off, you're bringing all of this plastic into your house. So, or sometimes it's glass, but usually it's plastic. So you bring all this plastic into your house, and let's say you have a cereal box decanter, right? So you have like a plastic thing for your cereal. Well, one day you get I don't eat cereal, so my numbers are going to be off here, but one day you get the extra large box of cereal instead of the regular size box of cereal. And you go to decant, which means to pour the cereal from the box into the other container. You go to decant it and it doesn't all fit. So now you have the decanter full of cereal and you have the box of cereal. You have double the amount of things to store. Or you all of a sudden decide that you're going to change your eating habits and you're never eating flour ever again. So you move to almond flour. So you have a decanter for your flour, which you're keeping on hand just in case. But then you also need a decanter for your almond flour, and you need to label it perfectly so that you know which one is almond flour and which one is regular flour. Although that's actually probably pretty easy to figure out, but you know what I mean. Decanting stuff makes no sense unless you literally purchase the same exact stuff every single time that you go to the store indefinitely. And that does not happen because we love a good sale. And anytime we have the opportunity to buy more for less, we tend to do that. So then we come home, we've purchased more than we have decanters for, and we're storing the decanted stuff and the regular stuff. It just makes no sense. Um, so unpopular professional organizer opinion. Now, if you are storing items on your counter because you don't have room for them in your cabinet, you have two options. Number one, I think that's totally okay as long as you still have functional counter space. The problem is when we start to use our functional space, so counter space in your kitchen is functional for the most part. The function is to be able, the function of a counter in a kitchen is to be able to prepare food for yourself and your family and your friends. It's preparation. That is the function of having a counter space. When we start to give a lot of our functional space over to storage space, this is okay. I mean, obviously, some small amount of counter space is going to be storage space, but is it infringing on your ability to cook? Do you still have space to use your counter functionally? If you do, then that's great. You can keep your stuff out on your countertop next to the stove for easy access when you're cooking. If you don't have enough counter space, then you need to think about how can I change things around so that my storage space is actually useful for the life that I'm living. When you have these items, and I'm assuming that we're talking about, because there's no picture here, but I'm assuming we're talking about like olive oils and vinegars and things like that that maybe tend to come in tall jars, which might not fit into your cabinets, but would be something that you would need to grab for easy access when you're cooking. Can you simply switch brands and buy them in shorter containers? Sometimes we have to shop for the storage that we have. So if in your kitchen you only have short storage, that might mean seeking out those products that come in smaller jars. There is definitely olive oils that come in smaller jars and vinegars that come in smaller jars and other cooking things that come in smaller containers that would fit in your storage to maximize your storage and then maximize your functional space in the kitchen. So, two options. Number one, leave it as it is. It's totally okay as long as you have functional space, countertop space. Option number two, buy for the storage that you have. Buy something that actually fits into your storage. That is really organizing 101. Live within the space that you have. Like, fit the stuff that you have to the space that you have. Reduce a collection until you're living within that space that you have, et cetera, et cetera. The second question, and this is going to be a very similar answer. How do you store your kitchen electronics, such as microwave, kettle, stand mixer, coffee machines, in an apartment? I have an IKEA kitchen rolling cart, but it's 50-50 in terms of working for me. I'm about to be gifted a double air fryer, and that thing is huge. Okay. You're going to hate my answer. If you don't have space in your kitchen for the items that you want, you need to live within the space that you have. If you have no space for a double air fryer, then you don't need a double air fryer. You need functional space in your kitchen more than you need a double air fryer. Here's a little note. An air fryer is just a convection oven. Most of us have convection ovens. Our oven, well, it's a small convection oven. Our ovens can also be convection ovens. I know air fryers are trendy and all of that, but there is nothing that you can do with an air fryer that you can't also do with your oven. So, do you really need a double air fryer if you have no space on your kitchen counters for cooking? So, if your appliances are taking up so much space that it's hard to actually cook and use your appliances, it's probably time to reduce the appliances that you have. So just listing from this list here, you have a microwave, a kettle, a stand mixer, a coffee machine, etc. What of those things can you let go of? Like, which ones can you let go of? A kettle, you can probably use a stovetop. A stand mixer, you can use a hand mixer. I think most of us have stand mixers and hand mixers. Unless you're baking all the time and you use your stand mixer every single day. I am personally 50-50 on stand mixers. I don't know that they're necessary in our homes. As somebody who cooks and bakes a ton, which I do, I hesitate to drag out my stand mixer because it's so heavy. And often I consider letting go of the stand mixer. I have not yet. It's made the cut for the last 18 years. But if I ever get to the point where I do not have storage space for that stand mixer, it is going. It is always on the chopping block. So it's just squeaking by. I'm not sure that it's necessary. I know it's not necessary. I know it's not necessary. I'm not sure it's worth the space that it takes up. So again, you're hearing all of the unpopular opinions here on today's Ask a Clutter Boss. Coffee machine, yeah, nope, you totally need that. But you need one coffee machine. And actually, you don't totally need that. You could do pour over coffee. There's other ways that you can make coffee. So just really think about, are my appliances taking up so much space on my counter that I can't actually cook? If they are, then why do I have the appliances? Because if you have no space for the function of cooking, then those appliances are doing you no good. All right. This has been a little bit of a longer episode than usual, but it's been fun chatting through these questions. If you have any questions for next week, you can leave them in the comments here. You can put them into our Facebook group. Just a friendly reminder, we do have a free Facebook community. It's All Clutter. Seek it out. It is a great spot to start working in a community that understands what you're going through, is completely judgment-free, and actually wants to see you succeed. So join our free Facebook community if you want to get started really with the skills that you need to start tackling your clutter. Get into boot camp. Clutter boot camp is going on right now. Today is day 2. You can still join, see yesterday's presentation, and be involved for the rest of the week. We'll pop the link for that into the comments. And otherwise, every time that you like, comment, and share on our videos, it truly helps our small business. So it is deeply, deeply, deeply appreciated. Remember, you are a clutter boss, and it is time to prioritize your sanity. I will see you same time, same place next week. Thank you.